Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Ramirez. I'm the manager of special collections. Sorry for the late start. We had a bit of technical difficulties going on here, but I'm very pleased to introduce all of you to some very important people. We have Don and Donnie Barnett, and we have Peg Rooney from the Arkansas Valley Audubon Society, and so I just thank you all for being here tonight, and I'll let Peg take it away. Peg.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron. I want to welcome you all here tonight and encourage you to join the Arkansas Valley Audubon Society to help protect birds and their habitats in southern Colorado and the San Luis Valley. We've lost over 3 billion birds since the 70s, and you may have noticed over the last year that you're seeing fewer and fewer birds around. Birds are an indicator of the health of the planet, and their numbers are declining. So we encourage you to join us to help us in our fight to protect birds and ultimately to protect ourselves. You can find membership information on our website, Southern Colorado Birds, abbreviated SOCO, so socobirds.org. Please join us. And now let's learn about the Cactus of Colorado.
Hi, I'm Don Barnett. I'm from the Colorado Cactus and Succulent Society, which is based throughout the state, but the main headquarters in Denver. We used to have a chapter here in Pueblo, but it went away about 4 years ago. I was a president for about 4 years, and we're the authors of the Cactus of Colorado. It came out late 2016, early 2017. So I'll go ahead and start with the click up there presentation. And I always throw a picture of the mountains because I've done this talk in other states, and they always think of Colorado as mountains. But as you know, 40% of our state is plains. And okay, and here's the book. And we determined there's about 24 species of cactus in Colorado with several different varieties within that. And of course, I'm starting off with the most common one everybody should know is the tree cholla, known Cylindropuntia imbricata, the tree cholla. This picture is from up near CSU Pueblo. And thing about that, they have a woody skeleton. So they're just a regular shrub. They have yellow fruits, which stay on the cactus. They show up in the late fall, and you'll see them throughout the winter. And a lot of people think that these yellow fruits are actually flowers. And it provides habitat for several birds, especially the curved-billed thrasher. And this is a picture of a nest I took near Walking Stick Golf Course. A particular pair of curved-billed thrashers, they nested in that nest for like 3 years and produced 3 sets of young each year. They actually laid 4 sets of eggs, but usually the last set of eggs was like in September, and they'd abandon the nest. And this is a picture of one in the nest. It's not my picture. This is from Texas, but it really shows you the nest I saw there in by Walking Stick was way deep inside the cactus where it was difficult to get a picture of them. And they get magenta flowers, but a woman named Marianne Hedgehog, who was one of the founding members of the Colorado Cactus Society, found a white flowering variety form in Phantom Canyon. This is from Phantom Canyon. It's a picture I took several years ago, and it's growing over a desert 4 o'clock. White flower ones are scattered throughout its range, from all the way from Mexico to here. And here's a typical flower. That's just a regular European honeybee on it. And it's at its northern range here in Colorado. All these orange dots found up there just about to Lyman. It's not found north of that. And there have been several theories why. Somebody wrote a paper that it was the mean winter temperatures were just too cold. We have a acquaintance who lives in Wiggins who grows one, and he says every few years they'll just get heavy snows, and it'll just destroy the whole plant, all the weight of all the snow on the cactus. So that's probably another reason why it's not found farther north. And here's the overall range. It goes down into Mexico. And these little maps right here that I'm showing you are from Flora of North America, which you can find online. There's another species of cholla found in Colorado, Opuntia whippleyi. It's known as the Plateau cholla, and it gets yellow flowers. But unlike our cholla here on the southeast Colorado, it's a low-growing cholla there. It's almost like mat forming. It can grow taller. This is near the Four Corners Monument, just by the San Juan River in Four Corners in Montezuma County. And this is another spot. This is the San Juan River right here. And those hills right there are probably in New Mexico. And like I said, this is in La Plata County, southeast of Durango. Here they are, same spot, but this is in the spring, late early summer when they're blooming. And this is a tall one. They tend to grow it at angles when they do get flower spike like that. Not spike, but
And they grow up right.
yeah. And the fruits are small, much smaller. They're very hard, and they stay on the plant for several years before they just dry up and fall off. And see, the range of it is in just barely in southwest Colorado, La Plata County, Archuleta County, Montezuma, barely into Dolores County there. And the overall range, you can see barely in Colorado. It goes farther into Nevada and a little farther up into Utah than that map shows. It gives you an idea, though. And then in our process of our study of Cactus of Colorado, we found a kind of a natural hybrid called Cylindropuntia anasaziensis. It's associated with ancient ancestral Pueblo Indian ruins. This is a Chimney Rock in the background, and there are ruins there. And this is from the type locality. And it's actually a hybrid between Cylindropuntia imbricata and Cylindropuntia whippleyi. It's the Anasazi people and even the Pueblo, like the Zuni people, especially now, used Cylindropuntia imbricata in some form, either as a spiritual thing or the fruit, the blossoms are edible. And
So with the fruit.
it mainly has like a in-between flower of kind of a rose color, not as dark as the magenta, but at this location we found 100 plants. And we only found 5 that had yellow flower, yellowish, but not as yellow like whippleyi. This is a picture from the top of Chimney Rock, and that's Highway 160 right there. And that spot where I was showing you is right there. The town of Pedra and the Pedra River flowing right here. And here's the picture of the plant. One thing that's interesting about this plant too is it is male sterile. It does not produce viable pollen. Yeah, here's a kind of a creamy yellow white one. These ones produce no pollen at all, while as this one, they produce a little bit of pollen, but the pollen is not viable. And the chollas all have what's called a thigmonastic response. If you see on these 2 flowers right here, if a bee or something lands on any part of the stamen, they all move towards that pollinator. Yeah. There we go. Here's you can see imbricata. See all the pollen down there on the petals, like just tons. And you might see a few yellow dots there, but that's it. The plants they will take pollen from another plant. Like the only plant that's native in that area is whippleyi, and they will take pollen from whippleyi. And that particular spot, the closest whippleyi are 50 yards away, about 50, a little more than 50 yards, and there's about 4 or 5 plants. So occasionally, I have assumed they got pollen from those plants we date these plants going back,
Between 850 CE and 1100 CE.
Probably, yeah. That's when area was occupied there. There were several 100 to 1,000 people living up there on Chimney Rock. And here's a range map of that. Chimney Rock is right there, and there's Hoven. There's a good population, quarter mile outside of Montezuma County at Hovenwheat, between several ruins. All these locations are ruin locations. We have Cylindropuntia viridiflora on that because it's people are saying that is a same type of plant, but it's not. Any sense there? And here's a comparison of the flowers. Here's a Puntia, our local imbricata. Here's Whipple, which you see has much smaller flowers. And Anastasiensis is kind of an intermediate between the two. Okay, now the chollas. We did find a new record for Mammillaria acantha, nipple cactus. And that was down near the Oklahoma border, literally like a mile north of the border. It grows on Little Black Mesa in Dakota sandstone derived soil. There we go. And we only found like 9 plants. And this is it here. This is this isn't a kind of cirrus, which we'll talk about soon. Yeah, there we go. It flowers in, say, mid-June.
May.
Yeah, May to June. Gets white flowers. And then after it flowers the next year, it'll pop out these red fruits, which are edible, and birds will eat them, and rodents. And this is Little Black Mesa here. And the place where we found those was right in this area right here. It's actually on national forest land, or I should say, Comanche National Grasslands. One little square plot. Actually, where we're taking the pictures on private land.
Probably an abandoned ranch house.
Yeah. Yeah, here we go. Here's the record. Here's the range according to Flora North America. And that spot is right there. It's actually found in another spot here near Colfax, Colfax County near Cimarron, which they don't have. It's mainly found farther south in its range. It's found in mountains. Farther up here, it's found in plains and mesas. But like in Texas, it goes into Mexico too, where it's found mostly on mountains. Okay, and this is Pelisophora missouriensis, so known as common name is a Missouri pincushion. And it's kind of an uncommon plant around here. It's kind of a cryptic plant. When it gets really dry, it pulls very deeply into the soil. And it gets yellow, white flowers, and the fruits do the same thing as the Mammillaria. Both these pictures were from Phantom Canyon. This is growing with the Selaginella moss. And what separates Pelisophora from the Mammillaria is they get this groove on the top of their nipple. You can see the areoles. Areole is a specific structure only to cactus. Other plants have spines or thorns, but cacti produce their spines from a structure known as the areole. You can see they can get this. You can see this plant is a little bigger than a dime, and it's flowering. A big plant would maybe the size of a tennis ball. There we go. And this is just out behind the Pueblo Reservoir, growing in limestone, which is very uncommon to see them growing in this kind of
soil.
I was going to say substrate. Yeah, this is actually Rush Creek right here. If you're not familiar with the Pueblo State Wildlife Area, Pikes Peak's right there in the background. I've probably been to the spot probably 50 times and never saw them. And then a wet year, like 5 or 6 years ago, I was walking and saw all these plants, and it's like, where'd they come from? Yeah, here's the range of it. It's found down the Front Range and goes across the Raton Mesa, down, goes into Oklahoma, and in the southwestern part of the state. Okay, here's the map. Yeah, it was first discovered in North Dakota back in 1810. It was one of the first cactus described in North America. Well, and next we have a spiny star, Pelisophora vivipara. Spiny star is the common name. It's a very widespread cactus. You see them all over the whole state, just about. People call them barrel cactus. They're commonly about the size of a baseball, smaller. Occasionally you'll see some bigger. They flower in June. Yeah. This is a different variety with white spines. It's called Variety New Mexicana, which is found in the southwest part of the state. Another one called Arizonica, which this particular plant has a lot of white in the petals. And it is also found from the southwest part of the state. The species is called vivipara because they get a lot of, they'll branch off to form little mounds of cactus. but they're all connected. And here are the fruits. The fruits can be anything from tan to yellow, occasionally reddish. Rodents will eat these. And here, you see it's very common on the eastern plains. Either singly, sometimes you can find colonies with 20, 30 plants. The other two varieties I showed you are found over here, Durango, is Montezuma County, Dolores County. And see, here's the range. Found all the way from Canada, it found into Mexico, all the way through the western Great Plains. Scattered locations in Arizona and Nevada. Okay, now we come, this is a mountain ball cactus. Very common in the state of Colorado. It's somewhat of a rare plant, except in our state. And they can get this plant right here is probably a little bigger than a softball. This is just about 9,000 feet, just west of Poncha Springs, Salida. And I believe that's Mount Tabawatch and Mount Chavano. Here it's growing like in an open meadow. This is a little farther to the east. This is on BLM land growing in pinyon juniper forest. And you can see there's literally, in this little square, I think there's probably a couple hundred plants from sizes, from large, small. This is a little farther still, and this is BLM land, and the BLM decided they want to raise cattle here, at least to lease the land. So they cleared several areas of the forest, and they put up cattle signs, and there were cattle around the area when we went there. And you can see when they did this, they uprooted several plants and just destroyed just so they can raise cattle. Spine color on these varies from like a bright red. This plant's about the size of a golf ball. And this one is called, people call this a snowball cactus. It has all white spines. And they can form mound and form many clusters of big plants. This plant's probably about 16 inches across and 8 inches tall. All these are all taken in the same area. And they bloom very early. As soon as the snow is gone, sometimes they'll even bloom as the snow is still on them. In usually early May. And this is a crested cactus. All cactus form these. Usually they get damaged or something like that, and they'll start growing oddly. At one time, these were thought to be a different species than the regular ball cactus here. A common name for this is rattlesnake cactus. Or peanut cactus. And they mainly have pink flowers, but on the western slopes, especially northeast, like up in Dinosaur National Monument, you'll see plants that get yellow flowers. And the fruits are little barrel-shaped fruits. They're usually reddish in color. And they'll dry up and they'll fall off right there. The seeds have a heavy seed coat. And they're very tubercled. And you can see here's the range of it in Colorado. Very common in the mountains. This is Mesa de Maya down here. A couple high points, and that's in the Pinyon Maneuver Site. And here's the range of it. It's found in western Colorado, scattered up there to Idaho. It's kind of in scattered mountain ranges across the Intermountain West, but it's very common in Colorado. These other places, it's not so common. Just like those are the Black Hills. You see this dot right here, this I should say triangle. That's a different species, as I'll tell you right here. Oh, wait. This is, I think, County Road 254 going up to that area. And I don't know if you can see it on this screen, but there's a plant right there, right along the road. And the reason I put this in there is because you can see most of our cactus along county roads and highways across the whole state. And I assume that's because we have so many roads in the state. Okay, here we go. This is a super rare Pedicactus knowltoni, which is found only in one location on the Colorado-New Mexico border. It's the biggest plant, big plants, maybe the size of a ping pong ball, if that. And it has slightly different spines where they're comb-like, I guess would be the best way to say that. There we go. There's the habit. Well, it was discovered around 1960 by a guy named Fred Knowlton, who was building a road. And he noticed that their bulldozer was digging up these little cactus. And it was described shortly later by a guy named Lyman Benson, who was a cactus expert at the time. And it was estimated there was 100,000 of these little pediocactus. You can see this is a big one right in the corner down here. That's a multi-stem plant that's probably about maybe 6-8 inches across in diameter with about 5 or 6 stems. Anyway, in 1960, there were estimated to be 100,000 plants. By 1972, there was estimated to be only 1,000 plants. Because once word got out about this plant, cactus collectors, that's a big problem, especially now. It's really bad now because Europeans and Asians are coming to our country and just plundering the cactus populations. This is on the Nature Conservancy owns this particular hill. Another thing that happened was they were building Navajo Dam, and the New Mexico Cactus Society thought that this area was going to be flooded by the dam. So they dug up a bunch of them and moved them to a different spot. And obviously this didn't get flooded by the dam. And most of the plants they transplanted did not live. And I talked to somebody who was a member of that club, and he said for as many as they transplanted, they kept themselves. Yeah, there you go. This is a picture. This is in June when it was super dry and the plants are very dehydrated and pulled in. And this is the fruits. They slice open on the side here, and the seeds will fall out. And again, it has very hard shelled seeds. Okay. I should say that Pediocactus sutna is an endangered species. And this is this is a threatened species, the Colorado hookless cactus, which is a sclerocactus. Sclero means hard. It refers to the hard. They're usually sclerocactus are very spiny and have vicious spines. And glaucus refers to the color like a bluish green. This is a threatened species in Colorado. This is the Colorado's only endemic species. That particular plant I showed you is about 6 inches in diameter, about 6 inches high. They can get about 10 inches high and about 8 to 10 inches in diameter. And it grows in really severe badlands. I'll tell you about that coming up. Yeah. These plants here are a little more squat. And there's the fruits. And again, it's a little barrel shaped. And then here's a big one with, you can see the seeds sitting on there after it's already split open. There's one nearly in flower. There we go. Here's a typical habitat. This is like manco shale clay, derived clay. This is near Land's End Road near Grand Mesa, Colorado. There's the plant right there. There. They often grow underneath artemisia, sagebrush and stuff. Nurse plants because it does get very hot there. Precipitation is probably about maybe 8 inches a year. There's a nicer colored one, again, growing under a nurse plant. This is in Escalante Canyon in Delta County. Yeah, and with a little slightly pinker flowers. Kind of an atypical flower as opposed to the other one. Again, growing in this manco shell. This is just lava rock that's covering the top. Below it is this heavy clay soil. And this is Dominguez Canyon. That's Grand Mesa there. And the typical habitat, they're found in the canyon, but is this area right underneath that badlands of manco shale, manco-derived shale clay. That's the Gunnison River. Yeah, you can see. There, it's only found east of Grand Junction to almost Delta, Colorado. And there's two kind of separate populations. Another one up here by Dubuque and down here along the Gunnison River. Grand Mesa is right there in the middle between them. There we go. And then this is another endangered cactus in Colorado. This is Sclerocactus mesa verde. Again, it grows in manco clay soil. And this is a different chimney rock. but this is in Montezuma County, and you can really get an idea of how they grow in this. Really, it's almost barren. There's only Artemisia, Atriplex, I should say, sagebrush, shad scale, and they probably only get about 6 inches of rain here. There we go. And it's called Mesa Verde. This is Mesa Verde right here. This is the extreme western edge of Mesa Verde, here and back there. It doesn't grow on the mesa, but it goes right below the mesa in Montezuma. It's only found in 2 counties, Montezuma County in Colorado and San Juan County in adjacent New Mexico. This is on Navajo Indian Reservation. It's almost all found on the Navajo Reservation with a few small areas of BLM land near Farmington, New Mexico. And here, this plant is about the size of a golf ball, and that's about as big as they get. You can find little bigger mounds, well, maybe tennis ball size, I should say. And again, that's Mesa Verde back there. And here's a flowering one. I've only seen it in flower in one spot, right along Highway 160. And they get these creamy white flowers with the outer tepals there, kind of a brick red color. There you go. There's a nice close-up. And again, their seeds are very hard. It takes several years for them to germinate because they have to have a series of freezes and thaws to break open those hard shells. And this is Sclerocactus parviflorus. And this is the most common Sclerocactus of the genus. It's called the devil's claw cactus because it has these really long, very sharp hooks, spines. And this plant's about 7-8 inches tall. They can get almost a foot tall, or I would say maybe 14-15 inches. And they're growing, this is in Colorado National Monument. This is Navajo sandstone, and they're growing in the cryptobiotic soil on the surface of it. Usually in pinyon juniper. This is mostly juniper, though. This is on the east end of Colorado National Monument. Yeah, here we go. This is near Paradox, and this was the biggest one of these I've seen in Colorado, which is about 14 inches tall. Here we go. And the name parviflorus means small flower, but it actually has the largest flowers in the genus. They get these purple flowers. This is a picture from my garden, actually. There you go. And the fruits they'll start off red and they'll turn to tan color. And again, the seeds are very similar to the others. And it's barely found in Colorado on the western edge in the Painted Desert. Growing in mostly sandstone-derived soil. And there's another species very similar to it. Well, here's the range. This is a little overdone. It's not quite found that. It said it's the most widespread of the Sclerocacti. This is a very similar one. This one is called Sclerocactus cloverae. One of the main differences between it and parviflorus, it doesn't get quite as large, but the flowers are more funnel form. They're longer and narrower. And it's called the clover's cactus. And you find, well, who is Clover? It's named after Elzada Clover. She and Lois Schotter there were the first women to successfully go through the Grand Canyon in 1938. And they found it near Glen Canyon along the Colorado River. Here they are right here. This is a picture at the end of their expedition. And I just put that in there because you'll see these names and, well, who was Clover? Well, now you know. And it's a little spinier than parviflorus. Yeah. And this one is only about the size of a golf ball. We can see it's flowering. This one was thought to be a different subspecies, but genetic studies have found it's no different from the larger species. Again, it's found here in La Plata County, barely. This dot is a new dot. Recently, they did a genetic study and found you were doing some of these as markers to see if they were as a control, and found that, well, it's actually cloverae by genetics. There you go. It has a very small range. And again, this is a little overdone. And this is probably one of the most prettiest of the hedgehog cactus, Cactus fendleri. It's named after a botanist, one of the first botanists to go botanize the Santa Fe area. It gets very large flowers. This is taken near Canyon City, and this one's in Phantom Canyon. This again near Canyon City, growing on the hills just on the east edge of Canyon City. There we go. It kind of has two-tone flowers, dark interior, lighter. There we go. This is one from La Plata County. And here you can really see how big the flowers are to the plant. Even La Plata County has much smaller flowers.
Spines.
Spines, not flowers. One specific identifying factor of this plant is it gets a single spine that extends straight up. Here we go. And the fruits are edible. They have these deciduous spines. These spines will fall off real easy. You can knock them off with your hand. And several different, I know the Native Americans would eat these.
They taste like strawberries, kind of.
Mm-hmm. And of course, rodents eat them, pack rats especially. And here's Colorado. It's barely found in La Plata County, down by just south of Durango. There's by Mesa Verde. And then there's a relic population here in Fremont County. Here's the overall range. And it's not found in these areas where it shows go. It doesn't extend straight up like that. There's just an isolated population here. And it goes into Mexico. And it's found probably in New Mexico, it's found just south of Taos, farthest population we've seen. And this is a common cactus around Pueblo. It's one of the prettiest ones. It's called the purple torch. It's also called the white lace cactus for the spines. Purple candle is a common name. Scientific name is Echinocereus rickenbachia, named after another botanist, a German botanist. And it grows primarily in limestone soil. This is near the entrance to the Pueblo, the south entrance to the Pueblo Reservoir. It's a good habitat photo where you can see where it gets its name, purple torch or purple candle. And this is out in Comanche National Grasslands. And this is a limestone ridge. The soils here isn't as stony, if that makes sense, but it's still very basic soil. Yeah, here we go. This is really, this is behind the Pueblo Reservoir in the state wildlife area. And see, that's really, plants don't get as big here. There you go. This was taken in a drought year, and you can see the plant is still sunken into the ground because it's blooming. And this was taken on, I believe, June 12th. And it's growing in solid limestone soil. It's probably a little bigger than a ping pong ball, but a lot of the stem is pulled under still because it's so dry. There's a bigger plant. This is just near the dam of the reservoir. This has an atypical flower. It has a really pale pink petals, and it's not growing in limestone. It's growing in a river rock, but this river rock section is right next to a limestone section. There we go. Here's some more atypical flowers. This is the same flower I just showed you. Here's one that has very short petals. There we go. Here's the fruit of the plant. Again, the fruits dry out really quickly. They're not really edible because they don't have that much pulp. And they'll split along the sides, and ants will go and harvest all the seeds usually before the fruit's completely ripe. There you go. And here's the range in Colorado from just east of Penrose all the way down south. There's an empty area here, but there's not so much limestone, and this is a higher elevation area near the in eastern Las Animas County. And most of these locations are all limestone spots. And here's the overall range. You can see it barely coming up into Colorado. It goes down into Mexico. And there are several described subspecies. So some of them don't grow in limestone, and they were described as different species, but for the most part, it grows in limestone. And this is probably another very common cactus, especially around here. It's called the, go back, I went too far. The kind of series virid florus, virid meaning green, green flowers. Another common name for it is green flowering hedgehog, hen and chicks, where this is the hen and it gets flowers low on the stem, and these are the little chicks. And they can be single stemmed or they can form multiple stems. Usually the multi-stem plants are more common in colder, higher locations. It's found all the way from near the Kansas border up to about 9,000 feet along the Sawatch Range. There you go. And here's the fruits. The fruits are green on this particular plant. They look like little green peas. Another interesting thing is they get red spines and white spines, mainly alternating. And they have 2 to 3 central spines. This is in Baca County. Where it's warmer and wetter, they tend to get longer central spines. And in drier locations, like this is near CSU Pueblo. This plant has almost no central spines. Same species, though. There we go. This is another one near Baca County where the spines are almost all yellow, or you have a yellowish hue to it. There you go. And here's the range in Colorado, all along the eastern plains. Most of these spots out here are along like hills along rivers, little rises above them. They're from Prowers County all the way up there to, it's found all the way up to Buena Vista. And again, here's the overall range. All the way, the isolated population in the Black Hills goes into southern Wyoming and all in the whole eastern plains into Mexico. Most of these locations down here, though, are all in mountains. It's one of the most cold-tolerant hardy cactuses, kind of serious especially.
And the flowers smell like lemons.
Okay. This is our state cactus, the Echinocereus trigocliniatus. No, it's a Claret cup cactus. This is in Phantom Canyon. It's growing in the Pikes Peak granite. This is actually 2 plants. And they get the name Claret cup because of the claret red color of the flowers. The flowers stay open from 3 to 5 days, and most cactus flowers close at night. Claret cup cactuses, the flowers will stay open. And the name trigocliniatus means 3-spined. And you see this one, this is taken in the wintertime. The cactus is a little shriveled up, and it has 3 spines per aerial. This one only has 1. But typically, you'll see them where they have 5 to 6 spines. This is the aerial here. And this is a good picture showing that the flower buds burst right out of the epidermis of the plant, right above the aerials. Another distinguishing feature of trigocliniatus is it has flat, angled spines. So you can tell it from other ones, which we will show you. There we go. They can get very long central spines. I've seen some with maybe spines that are 4 or 5 inches long. And there's a good picture of the flower. The trigocliniatus has perfect flowers. They're red flowered. They're primarily pollinated or hummingbirds, which I'll tell you more about soon here. And again, the fruits are edible. They're red. They have these deciduous spines. Okay. And this is one from Fan. I'll show you this one because my wife took this picture of me and it looks like I'm up on a cliff, but the way the camera works, I'm probably only about 10 feet high. And here's another road picture. This is Highway 50 in the Arkansas River Canyon. That sign right there says Wellsville. And you can see there's one growing right there, right along the highway.
And that's not our car.
Oh, yeah, that's not, my son says, we do not drive a minivan. That's not our minivan. You can see my shadow right there. There's another species of cactus here, the Pellicophora vivipara. There's several species found right there. And yeah, here's the range of trigocliniatus. And again, it goes barely up to Buena Vista. And it also found over by Durango. It comes up from New Mexico along the Animas River. It's found there at Chimney Rock. And this one is a different species, which was used to be considered the same species, but it's different. I'll talk about that in a second. And here's the range of Trigolchidiatus. From about Buena Vista there, it goes all the way here down to White Sands, New Mexico, where the plants there can get, maybe about 2 feet tall stems, really big, and barely into Arizona there. Okay, this is a similar claret cup, but this is a Cainocereus mojaviensis, Mojave mountain cactus. And this is where the Cactus glaucus were from. And here it's growing. The soil here, again, like I said, it's Mancos clay. And those are Calicortus nuttuli. Don't need that. There. This is another picture from near the Black Canyon of the Gunnison. And it's growing in cryptobiotic soil, a sandy clay soil. Say Trigolchidiatus, the one we showed you before, only grows in solid rock or very gravelly soil. Now, this is right in the Black Canyon of the Gunnison. There we go. They grow right on the edges of the cliffs, right, like the top edges. Here's if they have perfect flowers too, but they tend to have a little more yellow at the bases of their interior flowers, which may be to attract more bees than hummingbirds. It's just a thought. And this is a 40 magnification of the spines to show that they have rounded spines. Sometimes the sides will be slightly flattened, but they're still rounded. And they have trichomes to distinguish it from other claret cups. And and then said it's found here. It was found here far north as Flaming Gorge, and over towards Gunnison. It's found around Blue Mesa Reservoir. And here's the range of it. Barely some San Diego County, Blue Mesa's right there. I think this is Wheeler Peak in Nevada. It's found up to as high as 9,000 feet, especially this record right here is on the west slope of the La Plata Mountains at almost 10,000 feet. It's on a exposed lava rock slope. And there's a interesting form of that inermis, of that mojaviensis, Cainocereus mojaviensis forma inermis. Inermis means unarmored. It's a spineless form. And this is a Colorado National Monument. You can see there's a Cactus parviflorus right there. And there's one. It was growing under a tree, but you can see that tree is gone. You can see with all the pine needles there. And you can see here, it's completely spineless. There we go. Here's a picture. You can see the fruit is spineless. You'll see some plants that have rudimentary, real short spines. This aerial has no spines. This one that's probably about a 1/2-inch spine right there. There you go. There's another species of claret cup cactus, the Cainocereus coccineus, which means, coccineus means scarlet. The flowers on it are a little more orangish color. And this is taken in the Royal Gorge. That's my wife taking a picture of that plant right there. This was in early May, or I should say early April, which was kind of early blooming for it. They bloom more towards late April to early May.
It was a big female.
Mm-hmm. And interesting thing about Cainocereus coccineus is that it is dioecious. It has the plants that are separate sexes. There's male plants and there's female plants. And female plants only produce female flowers right here. You can see that's the stigma lobes. And this is a male plant, and you can see the well-developed anthers and stamens on it. This one, the anthers are not developed at all. Here's a good cross-section of the female plant, male plant. They have nectar chambers. They have nectar chambers, and you can see the well-developed anthers and stamens on it. This one, the anthers are not developed at all. Here's a good cross-section of the female plant, male plant. They have nectar chambers. 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 They have nectar ch to attract hummingbirds. Their main pollinator is hummingbirds. And they have the anther ring there prevents bees from getting to the nectar. Anyway, the bees are more interested in collecting the pollen anyway. See, the ovaries are well developed on a female flower plant. The ovaries on the male plant, not so much. There you go. Here's a hummingbird. This is a Connoceros mojaviensis. Actually, this is near Glade Park. Not my photo. Here's another one. This is, again, a Connoceros coccineus. This is in New Mexico. And here you can see this is a female black chin. That one was a male black chin. I mean, this one is actually sitting on the flower. Well, the flowers do, compared to other cactus flowers, are a little stiffer and a little waxier than other cacti. There you go. This is a rufous hummingbird. And this is not a cactus. This is a penstemon. That's Penstemon barbatus, another red flowered plant that attract its main pollinator is hummingbirds. The reason I have this in here is to promote our new book, The Penstemons of Southeast Colorado. That picture is in the book. It's available on Amazon. That's the commercial message. Another interesting thing about Connoceros coccineus is some plants will get yellow pollen. Not all of them, though. You saw the ones that usually have pink to purplish pollen. This is a spot near Gardner, and they can form big, huge mounds, but they're smaller plants. You'll see it's very common in Warfano County.
I always say that the large plants tend to be female and the smaller plants are male. It's just something we've kind of noticed over the time. Probably easier for female plants to produce large amounts of seeds rather than the smaller male plants.
Okay. Again, this is just a few yards away from that other picture, but this is a good example of the habitat. They go in very rocky soil, growing under a pinyon pine. But then here it is. This is the road from Walsenburg to Gardner. Levita Pass is just behind this peak. Here they are growing out in the flats in this is a sandy clay soil, and there's huge mounds of these plants out there. And this picture was taken in Memorial Day weekend in one year in late May. And here's the range of it in Colorado. The small area of southeast Colorado. This record here is for Stone City, which you cannot go to now. And this is just south Methodist Mountain, south of Salida. But it's mostly common here in Warfano County. There we go. Come on. Oh. Yeah, here's the range of it. You're barely coming into southern Colorado is the farthest north, down into Texas, and down into Mexico. And on these locations here, they're almost all mountain locations. Now we get to the prickly pears, which most people around here and everywhere consider these weeds.
Do you want me to do prickly pear?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to do the prickly pear?
Yeah, you want to do my son is going to do the prickly pear. He's more of an expert than I am. This is probably the most common plant, though, in Colorado, cactus.
Okay, so Opuntia, as my father said, most people consider them weeds, but they probably have the best flowers of all the cactus. Usually, somebody will call you and ask you, "Hey, do you want to come and dig up some cactus on my land? I'm going to build something there," and 99% of the time it is a prickly pear, and I usually tell them, "No, enjoy your own mess." But for the most part, they tend to have yellow flowers. But in our area of Pueblo, we tend to have a nice mixture of colors. For the most part, I always take pictures of the pink plants because pink used to not be so common, and now pink is starting to become more common. But Opuntia polycantha, you could probably eat the flowers on these, but their fruit are very dry, and one of its names is called starvation cactus. It's found in lots of clay soils and pretty much anywhere on the plains and stuff where cattle or prehistoric bison didn't trample it. Sometimes there are real spiny forms they call trichophora, but I don't really acknowledge that name too much. And a good example is at lower elevations, they tend to be really spiny, and high elevations, in higher elevations, like around 9,000 feet, this is in Ponderosa Pine Forest, they almost are spineless. Very variable spinach. They usually bloom around late May, early June, sometimes all the way to 4th of July, depending on the elevation. We have this other form called hedgehog, found in Chaffee County, mostly in the higher elevations. And it's like a diminutive form that spreads by chains. It's Stoloniferous, as you would say. So it's real readily reproductive and can make some large mats. It's named after Marianne Hedgehog, who we mentioned earlier was one of the founders of the Colorado Cactus Society. Here's a couple examples of the flowers. Red filaments and white filaments on the flowers. And the plant on the right is just a more typical hedgehog flower. But as I mentioned about regular polycantha and the flower colors, there's the magenta. Plant on the right's kind of an orange. Sometimes they can be brown even in color, gold color. They really range in flower color, especially where you can find the two flower colors growing together. And here's the fruit of this plant. That's why they call it the starvation cactus. But these dry fruited prickly pears are like super important to pack rats. They make big caches of these things, and like all rodents, they'll bury their stash for wintertime. Either they'll get eaten in wintertime or they'll forget where they buried their stash, and then in springtime you'll see these little green leaves pop up, and pack rat buried its seeds here, and you'll get new prickly pears. And as you can see, it's quite common in our state. The plants on the western slope are a different subspecies, but they're really hard to tell apart. And this is kind of a generalized overview of all of Puntia polycantha. Found all the way up from Canada down to Mexico. It's found just south of Juarez, in fact, as well. This is the other subspecies of Puntia polycantha hystricina. Looks almost identical to the plants we have here in Pueblo or in our area of southeastern Colorado. This plant has larger flowers. Can also be pink flower, white flowered. It has more spines per aerial, and the plants all around tend to be larger. Here's a magenta color flower one. This is near Sand Canyon in Montezuma County. Sand Canyon ruins. Just real nice, large flower. That flower is probably 6 inches across. So, photos can't really show off how big these flowers are. Prickly pears are probably one of the most important things for the native bees. So even though there's weeds, or they're considered weeds by lots of people, the importance of the flowering is just immense for the native bee populations. This is in Mesa County. Well, it could be Delta County. It's right on the border area. This is below Grand Mesa where the Sclerocactus glaucus was found. As you can see, it's growing right at home with alkali saccatone and Atriplex corrugata, and there's probably some Icnosphere smallhaviensis mixed in right here. Real desert adapted prickly pears for sure. And here's a more defined range of it in Colorado. It also is found in higher mountains and lower elevations as well. I'm not really going to go over like the elevational range on those because it's kind of found throughout our elevation ranges. It wouldn't make sense to say it's not found below 3,000 feet because no place in our state is below 3,000 feet or such and such. And now Opuntia fragilis. This cactus is called the brittle cactus. At one time, it probably was a very widespread plant, probably really reliant on wolves and buffalo and large pack animals. It has these easily detaching stems and was once real common out on the plains, but there's no animals to move the plants around on the plains anymore in like herd fashion. Yeah, so like if you think about like the wildebeest in Africa, at one time the bison had to migrate large areas of our continent, and wolves and other predator animals would follow along and probably get these stuck in them. And you see how these animals, how tough they are. They can walk around for days with pieces of cactus and stuff stuck to them. And I mean, I've seen cactus pads stuck to the heads of bison where they were eating grass. Well, without that to happen, this plant's been restricted now to kind of just the mountainous areas. And it's kind of actually really on the decline. This first plant here was on Cottonwood Pass at 9,000 feet.
Yeah, about 9,000.
About 9,000 feet, growing kind of near a wet meadow. This is along the Colorado Trail, in fact. This next plant is like a second day or third day flower where they kind of fade. And this is near Chimney Rock National Monument. And most of the dots out on the eastern plains are probably not there anymore. They are more done by herbarium specimen. As I mentioned, that the bison had to have come across our area here, and now there's none of those left. And a lot of these counties right here in the middle are all farmland, so there's no way to know what was in that county or it was plowed over or etc. On the western slope, it makes a hybrid with the other Opuntia polycantha, which is here. Probably has one of the prettiest flowers of the thing. This is Opuntia X coloradensis. We named this in the book. It's kind of the pads are about 50 cent size and makes real dense mats. It comes in both flavors, of course, magenta and yellow. And
3/4 are red.
Yeah, 3/4 of them are probably the magenta color to 1/4 of them are yellow. But I've even seen oranges and whites colored flowers out of it too. Like Opuntia fragilis, it has this darkened purple epidermis around the areoles. So even in wintertime, it's kind of interesting looking. But they make these real dense mats, and you can actually get like hundreds of flowers on these when they're established. Actually, like a good plant for a section of your yard that you want flowers in that you don't want people in. And once again, another good plant for the native bees. And because they're magenta, even the hummingbirds will go to them. And I've seen other things like house finches and stuff go to the flowers as well. Kind of give you an idea of the range of the pads. How this is a large plant, a large padded plant on the left, and then there's like even more diminutive plants. So they kind of vary. More flowers. This more with a white edge, the more typical flower color here, and it's only found on the western slope, kind of on the edges of Grand Mesa and along the Colorado River and Gunnison River. This is Opuntia macrorrhiza. Macrorrhiza because it has a tuberous root. Most of these plants are nearly spineless, but they still have those small little hair-like spines called glaucids. This plant gets yellow flowers with red centers. It has a long flower tube, kind of separates it out from a lot of the other species. And as I said, it has an orange or red center flower. Really like sandy areas, but it's also found in the mountain areas where it's real rocky. But for the most part, it's found on the plains here along the drainages like Big Squirrel or Black Squirrel Creek, Chico Basin areas, Arkansas River, Fountain Creek. It likes growing right along the creeks. In fact, this is this one right. This is near the Fountain Creek, and this is probably a hybrid mixed in here, magenta, but we still put it in there anyhow because it's mostly macrorrhiza, and it does have edible fruit. I actually have not tried this one. I used a bigger prickly pear to make jelly, or I made syrup actually to mix in with lemonade. But you could use this one. You'd have to. I just use big tweezers, and then I just cut the glock or the areoles off them, and then I put it in a blender and ran it through 3 layers of cheesecloth to get my juice. So when they have yellow fruit like this, that means that there's actually a parasitized wasp in it, and these fruit won't produce seed. They'll just produce some type of wasp larvae. Kind of very interesting that it's like a gall almost. And here's why it's called macrorrhiza. It has a tuberous root, a large tuberous root. And as you can see, it's quite common in the eastern plains of Colorado. And its overall range is quite common. It's found there in central New Mexico. This map is overdone, and it's found in parts of Texas there that aren't really shown too well. This is the brown spine prickly pear, Opuntia tortospina, also called the twisted spine prickly pear. Most books you're going to find for Colorado, like Weber's Flora book, will call this Opuntia phaeacantha. For some reason, he never picked up the idea that there was another prickly pear found there. This is a cross between the Opuntia polyacantha, the first prickly pear I showed you, and the last prickly pear I showed you, macrorrhiza. And they make these really densely spined prickly pears called Opuntia tortospina. Because it's a hybrid, it has hybrid vigor. So the pads can be up to 12 inches across in some places, and very large, makes huge plants in places. It would be a better one for fruit to collect to make jelly or some type of edible prickly pear thing if you want to make candy or something out of it. This is a little black mesa in the background. This is off of Road 8 in Baca County. As you can see, the fruit are quite common here. This area here, the last time we visited, though, was hammered by hail, and most of these prickly pears were decimated by like softball-sized hail. It defoliated the junipers and stuff in the background, and then they had super severe drought on top of that before that. So Super severe drought followed by hail usually means bad recipe for all plants and animals. And it gets flowers just like Opuntia macrorrhiza, yellow flowers with an orange-red center. You're going to find that's a real common prickly pear color flower in general across most of the species. Probably at least 50% of the Opuntia or prickly pears have this type of flower. And I wanted to show the examples of Opuntia polycantha on the left, and then Opuntia macrorrhiza on the far right, and then like a pure hybrid right in the middle. And then because they have the same chromosome counts, they can cross back and forth, and you get plants that lean in one direction towards the other. They can lean more polycantha. This plant is, 80% polycantha. Well, this plant is 80% macrorrhiza, but they still have tainted genetics in them. And it's found everywhere where both those plants are found. So probably the most common large prickly pear in Colorado. And give you an idea of its range, it's found over here in Arizona as well. It's just kind of a newer idea of that species.
East-west slope one.
Yeah, and then this is because they can be hybrids of the polycantha, they can have magenta flowers as well on occasion. So Opuntia phaeacantha, which is what most books will say is found in our area, is actually really rare in Colorado. It's only found in the Colorado River drainage and then in Baca County in the far corner. It's a more upright species, makes probably 2 or 3 pads tall, where the tortoise spina, which we see everywhere, is 1 or 2 pads tall, can be real large, actually is larger than this Opuntia phaeacantha. But this plant has more dainty flowers. I wish I had pictures of the flowers side by side, but as you can see, this is a very much more upright prickly pear. Side by side, it has way fewer spines, and
last place was Sand Canyon.
Yeah, this last place here was Sand Canyon. Oh, I forget. It's also found it's found down there in the southwest corner as well with the Native American ruins. This is Sand Canyon also. This is just a nightmare mixture of prickly pears. And this is Chimney Rock. I'm assuming they were actually eating this prickly pear regularly. It has real nice looking flowers and stuff, but I'm guessing the flowers taste better than most of the other prickly pears. This is me with Mark Roper. He's a ranger with the at the Chimney Rock, and he took us kind of behind the scenes to look at the chollas. And when I was there, I got a chance to look at the prickly pears. We're working on prickly pear project as it is, but I got to see a lot. There's this area. There's a pit house right by this dead tree or down tree here. You can't really see, but so all these prickly pears here are kind of planted or they're out of their elevational range, and there's chollas not far from here as well. So I guess if you're going to eat them, you bring it closer to your house then. No refrigerator. The thing with the Opuntia phaeacantha, as I said, way less spines. And they also have yellow flowers with a red center, but these have guidelines that go all the way up the petals where the others don't. And you can actually see that on the outside of the petal too. If you really want to know more about it, I can give you more technical information about phaeacantha, and in our book we have plant keys if that wants to take you, if you want to go down that road to be more definitive of what you're looking at. And there's its range. As you can see, it's not really found like in Pueblo County or Los Animas County or any of our local counties. Well, it's barely found in Los Animas County.
They're all in canyon areas.
Yeah, and they're all in canyon areas facing south. And I'm not sure why this whole glob of southern Arizona on this Flora North America map is missing, because that's like kind of one of the major areas for Opuntia phaeacantha.
And then it cleared their eastern Colorado.
Yeah. And just to give you a comparison of things, and Opuntia phaeacantha is here, and then it crosses with polycantha. Prickly pears are amongst the hardest cactus to identify. But like I said, you can't beat the flowers, and their fruit tastes real good when you can eat them. And flower dissects help with identification if that interests you. And here's the main, the main critter that works and lives in Opuntia polycantha, or Opuntia in general. You said the white.
That's a white cheek.
Yeah, white cheek pack rat. Yeah, wood rat, pack rat. And then animals live in a plant matrix.
That's a perfect definition of that. Okay, that's
the end.
Any questions?
And if you have any questions, we're here to answer.
Okie dokie. Thank you so much, Don and Donnie. This was fantastic. I know I learned a lot. We don't have any questions come in on the Facebook or YouTube. Peg, I imagine you have some questions.
Yeah, I've got a list there.
Sure.
Where can we get your book, The Cactus of Colorado?
You can get it on Amazon, but the easiest place to find it is just go to coloradocacti.com. And there's a link there for this new book, Our Pensament of Southeastern Colorado. And then right below it is The Cactus of Colorado. And it'll give you a link to go to Amazon. And it's $39.99 on Amazon. Because we did do that. We self-published the book.
Cactus by the Cactus Society actually published it.
But it's printed in the US, so.
Okay, great. What's the difference between a cactus and a succulent?
Well,
cactus are succulents.
Yeah, cactus are succulents.
But not all succulents are cacti.
There you go. That's okay. Got it.
Like a yucca is technically a succulent. Or if you're familiar with agaves, what they make tequila out of, those are succulents. Or a sedum is a succulent, but they're not cacti.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're called the Cactus and Succulent Society, though, yeah?
Yeah,
So you study all of those varieties then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. What's the best variety of cactus for a garden in southern Colorado? Say Pueblo area.
Well, actually, all of the ones that we showed you are cold hardy for here.
Probably the one that would bring you the most enjoyment would probably be the Claret cup cactuses, any of the Claret cup cactuses.
Yeah, those are.
Because they bring hummingbirds to your yard.
And they also flower for 5 days per flower. So it'll flower for 2 or 3 weeks for nice mounds. Some plants like the Sclerocactus and Pediocactus, which are nice, they're harder to grow because they come from places that only get like 5 inches of rain. Or you can grow them. I grow them in my yard, but the way our climate is going, we're getting the same amount of moisture, like 12 inches, what we get here almost. But we'll get it all in 3 or 4 storms where we get 2 or 3 inches, and then it doesn't rain for 2 or 3 months. And that's hard for the cactus to
it's hard even
adapt to.
It's hard even on cactus.
You bet. I love prickly pear. I have them in my yard, but I've noticed this white kind of stringy sort of filament or something on some of the plants, and they don't look as healthy. Is that a disease?
It's a pest, actually. It's called cochineal scale. If you break it open, if you poke at it, it'll bleed like red dye. It's actually a type of like mealy bug.
Okay.
It's specific to prickly pears. The Native Americans actually used to use that for dyes and stuff like that, and they still use it, and they still grow it in Mexico and in South America to make dyes out of. It's like the number one. I believe it's actually like red. It's a red dye number even to it. So,
will it kill the plant?
If you don't if you don't take care of it, it'll eventually do some damage to it. It's hard to get rid of.
Is it?
The easiest way to knock it back is just to get a strong like a power head nozzle with the hose and just knock it off the.
That's what I did. Okay, good. I'm on the right track with that then. Okay.
You could try like in wintertime when there's no pollinators around, you could try like some of the dormant oil and horticulture oil, and that might kill it some more. But otherwise, you have to use some real harsh chemicals to get rid of it.
Yeah. Let's see. How about some medicinal properties of cacti?
I don't think there's any medicinal properties. It was just more of a.
It's like good for diabetics. Eating the actual pads supposedly help balance your blood sugar.
As my father just said there, I guess if you were to eat the actual pads of the prickly pear, it's good for blood sugar and diabetics that way. I guess I could see that because if you've ever had nopales, where they when the prickly pears the less spiny they are when they grow before the pad matures, it's easy to cut the green leaves or soon to be spines off the pads, and then those can be you can just eat them raw, or you can cook them up, boil them, and my mom said you can mix them with eggs.
Is that right? Okay, that sounds good.
There's actually cactus cookbooks.
Yeah, and I experimented this fall with collecting fruit and making jelly. Or I made not jelly. I keep saying jelly syrup, so I can mix it to lemonade to make prickly pear lemonade.
I know when you said that sounded so good.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. A great presentation.
Yes, thank you guys. And I have one question, if you have time. Removing cactus from public land is illegal, correct? You cannot do that.
Yeah, well, technically, anything taken from public land is illegal because it's everybody's property. In our state, if you have like private land, you could ask to take stuff, or if you know they're going to bulldoze like somebody's property, you could go and salvage some cactus that way. On the western slope in the Grand Junction area, you can get a permit for $10. I think is the cost of the permit. Maybe it's $20 now.
It goes by inch after that.
And then it goes by inch after that, and you can dig up cactus on the public land there.
It's called a wilding permit.
Yeah.
And you buy it at the BLM office there in
Grand Junction. Only the Grand Junction one will do that, though, because the other offices will look at you like you're a crazy person.
And that's endangered or threatened species you cannot collect there with the permit.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Fascinating. Awesome. So no digging up the whole plant, no harvesting their seeds as well, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. You could probably collect, like if it's a plant around there, you could probably collect, as long as it's not an endangered species or threatened, you could probably collect seed without too much trouble.
And in the prickly pear and cholla species, they're actually easier to cultivate from just doing cuttings.
Yeah.
You can cut off a pad or a joint of a cholla. Let it dry out. Let it
dry out for 2 weeks, and then you can plant it in soil,
and it'll grow roots.
And
they actually some ways better than digging up a whole plant.
You bet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No one's going to bother you about those two objects either. Prickly pears and chollas are, as we've mentioned, are weeds to most people and where they're found. It amazes
prickly
me.
Pears are delicious, so I'll take those any day.
What
amazes, tuna, I guess. Yeah.
Amazes you how many people, oh, you got cat. I don't want that cactus. Get rid of that, please.
Yeah.
Cool.
And there are many.
Listen, do they?
There are many nurseries. One ourselves, we grow and sell cactus every year too. So if you're looking for cactus for your garden, we sell it as well.
And the Colorado Cactus and Succulent Society, we have an annual sale every year in the Denver area.
Yeah, it's at the Jeffco Fairgrounds
this year. Yeah, the first time they're having it in a couple years
because of COVID.
And it's when is it? Like April 28th or something like that. The weekend there.
Yeah, it's April 20. 3rd and 24th at the Jeff.
So, very good.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you again for joining us tonight, Peg and Don and Donnie. I really appreciate it. And I put the coloradocacti.com in the chat, so we've got that there, and it'll be available for playback, so people can go there to get a better idea of what you're doing and your books. And I'll be ordering some of your books for the library here, so I'm excited about that as well. So
That's great.
thanks again.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.